Barbra Sainsurin. Tell me about what has changed about your leadership style and what has not changed about your leadership style over the years.
Thank you for having me, Anne. I would say that what has changed the most about my leadership style is getting comfortable leading through vulnerability. And that has just come with time and as I've built my confidence as a leader. And I would say that what hasn't changed is leading through kindness, warmth, and openness, which ultimately has been how I wish and want to be led.
All that and more human moments today on Transformers. What is transformation and who are some of the people leading the way? Join me today for a slightly different journey as I talk to a fellow nerd, but a nerd in marketing. Marketing is undergoing a lot of transformation around personalization, how data is used, and how you engage with customers. My name is Anne Funai. I'm CIO and Vice President of Business Platform Transformation at IBM, and this is Transformers, a Think podcast. Barbra Sainsurin, thank you so much for joining me on Transformers. And I have to very first say, congratulations on becoming CMO of Anthropologie. I love the time we got to spend working together at Under Armour. And when I saw that promotion, I was jumping with joy for you. So congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much, Anne. It has been quite a journey, and I'm really excited to have had the opportunity to step into this role. But I'm even more excited to be joining you on this podcast. You know, I love you, and I loved working with you over at Under Armour. There weren't many of us, and finding people whom you truly connect with on a personal level was a gift, and you were definitely one of those gifts while I was there. So
feeling absolutely the same about you. And I think there's a couple reasons I'm super excited, not just because we get to hang out for a little extra time now that we're not seeing each other in the same city all the time, but twofold. One, you're my first guest coming from the marketing space, and we've been talking about transformation a lot from a technical standpoint. So I'm really excited to kind of dig into some of the flavor and flair of marketing transformation and evolution. But you're also the first B2C company guest. Every other guest we've had on is a B2B company. And, I think let's just start with the B2C angle. And I'm curious, your experiences as, not just with Anthropologie, you lived through a lot with Under Armour, other companies. How are you seeing transformation and evolution happening in that B2C space that might be, perhaps a little perpendicular to B2C or B2B?
Yeah, a really great question. And I would say that you probably experienced this as well at Under Armour in that transformation was super fast. The time between launching a campaign and getting signals back from our customers is really short. And therefore, the speed at which we needed to learn also needed to be really fast. And what we've had to do here at Anthropologie is, one, understand what that feedback loop looked like, and then how could we create processes and systems that would empower our teams to be able to collect data, translate that data into insights, but then more importantly, action on that data in real time. And I would say that was probably one of the biggest differences between B2B. Another difference is that, and this might be the same for B2B, but in today's age, to stay relevant, you need to be tapped into culture at a much deeper level than I think brands have had to be in the past. And the range of cultural conversations that are happening today are vast. And so as Anthropologie is, one, trying to stay connected with our current customer, but then also attracting this new, younger demographic of consumers, we've had to kind of do a little bit of understanding or digging into what are all of the conversations that our customers are engaging in across fashion, music, sports, travel, arts. which conversations do we feel are authentic to who we are as a brand? And then at what times of the year do we want to like inject ourselves into those conversations? One, because we want to come across as like relevant, but two, we also want to come across as authentic. So really important for us so that we're not just kind of like doing it for the sake of jumping on the bandwagon, but we are intentionally engaging in conversations that one, our customers feel like we should be engaged in, and two, that we feel that we can actually add value, add value and like dimensionality to those conversations. And I think the last difference, which may not be like specific to a B2C company, and might, span B2B and B2C, is that like transformation can't be done in isolation. And that it really requires alignment cross-functionally in order to be effective. And that cross-functional alignment can't just stay at the top. It needs to cascade down into the working teams. And so like not only having a clear idea of what your goals are and how those goals translate into like strategic tactics, but then as you execute, making sure your teams are super clear on not only what it is that we're going to do, but what it is that we're going to need to stop doing so that everyone is pointing their arrows at the right targets, and we're ensuring that we're all heading in the right direction together.
And so if I kind of synthesize those points, what I love is you talked about audiences. And I think in a B2C, you're talking about audiences of individuals, whereas in a B2B environment, we are audiences of like tech companies, segment, like you would be part of an audience of retail clients, for example, in a B2B world. So it's like, again, the individual versus the kind of corporate. And I did also love the differentiation you laid out there with, you talked about the trends, and for a retail environment, okay, I have to track the next generation or else my customer set, like, in this case of Anthropologie, it might be youth. In the case of other retailers, it might be, attracting a different audience set or segment and capturing them as they age in perhaps or move around the globe. And it is an interesting contrast there to me, because it's not that individual sentiment, like those moments we can't miss are making sure we are part of, say, an AI conversation, because everyone's talking AI in the tech space, but what does that mean? You have to bring a point of view to the table. Data is always a conversation. So it's these large technical conversations that we have to maintain a relevancy in as a technical company, as a B2B company. So I like the way you segmented that out, and you kind of hit me with the next question. You set me up for the next question, though, in your last moment, which is, you have to work across the enterprise. So what you're doing is not in a silo. And very frankly, this is why I wanted to expand out and have folks from other disciplines like marketing in, and just to talk about the importance of having that vision. So, if I as a CIO say, hey, Barbara, I'm looking from the tech up, your tech stack is really ugly. I'm concerned you're not getting the data you need to make your decisions. I'm afraid you might be getting too much noise. Let's sit down and talk about I can see the architecture. I can see the plans. I can say, I'm sensing there's a business problem, but tell me your vision. And from a marketing standpoint, and that's actually a pretty parallel conversation I had with, sales, support, et cetera. From your perspective, like, who are the big stakeholders that you need to work with in your seat to kind of drive evolutions, transformations, changes in marketing? Because again, in a B2C, I think you guys are on faster cycles than we even are right now.
Yeah. And I would say, honestly, I was thinking about this question, and I was like, all of them, right? Like,
Yes.
Our marketing transformation has only been successful because we've I've made it a priority to make sure that I'm bringing my partners along across finance, across buying and merchandising, across creative, across product and operations, because marketing is kind of like the first place where you capture changes in consumer behavior. It was really important for me to then communicate and share how the changes in how the shifts in consumer behavior impact where we're investing, how we need to invest, who we're targeting, how we need to engage this new and emerging customer segments in new channels. And then from a product perspective, we also needed to make sure that we're showing up with the right product that would best attract, engage, and ultimately convert them when we see them both online and in store. So it was hard, it was long, but it really transected the entire organization. And it's an evolving conversation, as you know, Anne, right? Transformation isn't one note. Like, it's constantly happening.
It's the marathon. It's not the sprint.
It's
Yeah, I've had this conversation with our CFO as well. It's like transformation doesn't stop, or else you're going to shut your doors soon, right?
It's like, as you execute, iterate, evolve, capture, read, react, you're constantly finding new canaries in the coal mine that become future indicators of where you need to kind of like set that next target. And so as we've finished or are completing kind of like our first phase of transformation, we're then quickly talking about what this next phase is going to look like, especially as you just mentioned, as we think about AI, AEO, GEO, like there's just new terminology coming up every day. And it's enough to make my head spin.
Oh, yeah, no, it might explode, spin, whichever one you want, right? In one of the things I remember a lot about our conversations working together is also finding that common language is so important. And I can even again, I'll see this in my seat as marketing sees stuff from this external audience driving demand generation, but then sales say the terminology changes to sales, and so a lot of times I find myself again in my seat, like how do we translate? How do we create a common definitional dictionary so we are driving towards the right answers? And I think a lot of times, at Under Armour, remember one of the things I always try to do when there was questions about technology is like, could I bring it back to a sports analogy? Could I bring it back to how we manufactured the original T-shirt, right? How does the supply chain work? How does the distribution channel work? To really ground it in a company that wasn't a native tech company but had to exist. Like there's no company that isn't a tech company today. In your seat, I think it's a variation on that same theme though. Do you have any kind of tricks or tips that you use to really translate the language of marketing when you talk to a CFO, right? I could see that being we're going to go right past each other if you don't get that right.
You know what? You're absolutely right. But honestly, like I'm super fortunate to work at a brand that is very consumer obsessed or customer obsessed. So we just talk about the customer. And so when I'm translating or having a conversation with my CFO and I'm using marketing metrics, I'm talking about those marketing metrics from the lens of the customer. So like I'm seeing her engage, like engagement metrics within social, then connect to traffic, then conversion. And I'm just kind of like, okay, she's loving what we're talking about. But then when she's landing on site, she's not actually converting on the things we're talking about, but she's converting on these other things. So the marketing effectiveness is working in getting her to the site, but then we probably need to come up with other ways to make sure that when she lands on our site, that she's buying the products that are most impactful to our growth goals. And so I feel as though being able to frame these conversations, arguments around the customer has been a great way to not falling into like the jargon trap, because
Yep.
like
Oh,
marketing could
gosh.
also be super jargony.
Yes. And one of the things I say too and tell me if this, okay, tell me if this resonates with you. One of the things that's kind of been gnawing at me lately is I feel like jargon can be weaponized. Like
Oh yeah.
it keeps you from being that data driven, or it's like, well, I'm going to move faster at you, or like, well, that is not the audience segmentation we wanted and did not drive the demand generation. Or, my people could say like, I don't think you understand the complexity because these APIs and we've had to customize this and we've configured here and customize. It's like we use jargon, I think, almost like as a buffer or a weapon
Oh
sometimes when we
yeah.
don't want to attack the real problems.
Or we may not even know what the real problem is. And so jargon can sometimes give you the impression of being smart or being, on top of everything, but you're actually not. And so it's a similar issue that we run into here. And oftentimes I like when I'm in conversations where like the language that is being used kind of like is above me and I don't understand how the solution actually connects back to a business problem, then I kind of like, guys, here, let me restate the business problem or the business opportunity. And can you reframe that solution that you just discussed and help me understand how it specifically addresses this business opportunity?
Yeah. And I feel like some of the strongest and best leaders I've worked with and for are the ones that have the humility to say, I don't
I don't
fully
get it.
understand. I don't get it. Like Kevin Plank, the founder of Under Armour, every time I would sit in his office, we had these very robust conversations about the future of technology. And there was a vision there. How do I get there? And I'm not saying there weren't stumbling blocks. There always are going to be in a larger company, but there is a curiosity there. And like I see this in our chairman here at IBM. It is, he is like 10 steps ahead, but it's not because he is always learning. It's because he's always asking the question. It's because he's curious. And I think, call it in the transformation space, in, the speed with which the world moves. And I say speed in a non-weaponized way, of course. And it is that curiosity and having the confidence to walk in and say, wait, that doesn't make sense. And I like when things, it's boomeranging back to IBM, it's like the number of conversations I've been in where I'm like, you guys just threw another acronym out. And like, oh, and literally people around me, other executives, like, oh, I didn't know what that acronym was. I was just using it in context. And I'm like, you have to ask the question, right?
Yeah, yeah. But I also feel like there's kind of like two flavors of curiosity. There's curiosity to truly build understanding and then use that understanding to drive to help an organization move forward, and also be open to when that understanding goes against a previous assumption or conclusion. And then there's curiosity that oftentimes I found has been weaponized, where you're only curious when you're looking to affirm or confirm
Yeah.
a previous assumption, and not
Yeah.
really using curiosity to grow and learn and expand beyond
Yeah.
kind of like your existing knowledge set.
Yeah, it's actually funny. Again, where we met, we had that conversation a lot, and I think I actually in my desk behind me kept these. We had a set of cards called "Your Logical Fallacy Is." It's in one of the logical fallacy is you only seek data that supports your opinion, right? And you seek data that you don't seek data that, or you don't seek information or knowledge that educates you for the greater good. And
Exactly.
yeah, I totally 1,000% agree with you on that one. And, I think another good segue, as always, it's like we planned this or something, which we actually didn't if you're watching.
We didn't.
Um,
Yes.
But it kind of does lead to an interesting conversation about what does it mean to be data driven in your
Mm.
world, right? Has the data that let me flip the words, has the data that drives your decisions, like have you seen a fundamental change in what drives your decision making? Or is that, I guess, is it the same and we're using it in different ways? And not to set you up for an either or answer, but just that's where my head was going there.
Way in which I'm using data today is very different than how I've used it previously. And when you think about the consumer journey, right? Like marketing metrics only give you a view into just one part of that journey. And it's been really important for me to educate myself and to have my team educate themselves beyond just marketing metrics and to have a real thorough understanding of all of the metrics that exist along that journey. And as we're pushing and pulling certain marketing metrics, understanding the impact that those decisions have on some of the down funnel metrics, and really working closely with like our product and engineering teams to create a system that allows us to better understand the relationship between all of these metrics that get impacted along that kind of like purchase journey. And so as a result of that, my definition of success has broadened, right? My definition of success goes beyond just like media effectiveness. It's like, did our marketing strategies deliver on our like business goals of acquiring new customers, retaining our existing customers at a greater rate, or helping to positively impact our brand health? And with those systems in place, we can have those more robust conversations, and more easily draw those connections. I don't know if that answers your
Yeah, no,
question.
it absolutely does. Because I was actually thinking when we connected before this recording, and I said, yes, every time I get the anthropology email, I think of you. And you made a comment about click through rate, and I'm like, yes, like that is something that I think understanding click through rate, like so, if 80% of your probably, I know this is a kind of a ridiculous number in marketing, but 80% of folks open it, but how does that actually convert to a sale? It is every step of the journey. And it's not only was that not a thing, 8, 10 years ago, even, it's, that wasn't the means with which you engaged. Again, the concept that everyone's a tech company now, whether you want to be or not. And, it was, I think, hypothesis, not being a marketing person, but having learned from wonderful folks like you, is email was a way to raise awareness, not convert to sales, I would suspect, when it first became a vehicle.
I would actually say the opposite.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I would say that email was probably one of the most direct marketing um, channels within our media portfolio, because marketers could more easily see the direct impact of what an open click-through rate had on traffic and sales. It was kind of like this closed loop measurement system. And now that people are opening less emails, and now that, changes in technology like Apple iOS and, all of those things no longer provide visibility into metrics like open rates, and you're getting less of that visibility. We've had to think differently about the role that email plays in today's kind of like media journey, and come up with different strategies that allow us to get our message in front of more people and more of the right people, as kind of like an offset, if that makes any sense.
No, it makes total sense. And I'm reminded of, I think, a work our teams did together again back in our day together was we put that data platform in place, right? That brought the data in from commerce, the mobile, the connected fitness apps, and we could see the journey a customer's taking to allow better triggering of events. And I remember one of the problems we talked about solving early on, and again, this is, I think, for everyone watching, timing's sake, this was, I think, a universal problem is like, why am I getting men's golf emails when I am interested in women's soccer, women's weightlifting? I'm interested in, walking and running and hiking, right? And it's like, I think that data foundation, I think, also naturally leads to a tech savviness that maybe could have been divided in the past and has to be, part of everyone's education, who they are. Like, and I'm not even talking here about like, oh, AI is going to cut off the easy tasks, right? It's like, what's your expectation for a tech savviness, or maybe not expectation, but a definition of tech savviness that you would expect for folks in your team to have in this world?
In my opinion, right, the data builds our understanding of the customer. And we have different cohorts of customers who want different things and engage in differently across a number of, many more channels than they ever did 2 years ago. And so when I think about tech savviness, it's like as we build our understanding of these, ranges of customer needs and customer channel preferences, we need to understand where there is technology that can activate on that data to better personalize the experiences of these segments in the channels that are most impactful for those customers.
Again, ruthless customer focus that you have in your seat, and you're touching on maybe the omni-channel experience here that you are developing is, how do you scale how do you scale the omni-channel experience? I think you were, if I can pull a thread, I think you were touching on the data drives you towards which channel is the best channel for a certain segment. But how do you look at scaling in looking at the world where it's going with tech, with AI, all the things now at your fingertips? Do you think differently about how you scale either technology or a reach out method, a way of touching your customers?
Right. Your question makes me think of like personalization and CRM systems and like CDPs and all of the, fun acronyms that we like to throw and have created to throw at these issues. And it's kind of like we're having this conversation internally around like buy versus build. And there's a lot of technology in this space that says that they can scale the activation layer.
Oh, no. Oh, absolutely. Like buy versus build is always going to be a thing. Always. That is not changing.
We've gone the buy route. We've gone all into enterprise CRM solutions. And what we've learned is that even though capabilities can exist within one brand, it doesn't mean that the capabilities are actually connected in the ways that they need to be connected in order to effectively scale and deliver on this promise of personalization at scale. We're having a conversation of going into more of these like best in class point solutions and figuring out kind of like what are the pipes that we need to develop so that these solutions talk to each other and can more effectively activate on the data at scale.
And I think that's very actually analogous to one of the things I'm talking about even in the CIO space, which is whether it's your your ERP, your CRM, your marketing systems. Different channels have different metrics associated with them, right? Like, so having the best in breed point solutions, I think, is a really incredibly valid approach. And again, I would argue that I think part of the role AI is going to give us is that orchestration and the insights between the common. So my hope, honestly, is like, again, less of the build and more of, hey,
Yeah.
we train the
Do it.
AI on that.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I guess as we wrap up here is, how do you think about setting your teams up for success in this transforming world, right? Again, we've already hit all the points. Things are not slowing down at all anytime soon. And there's a certain like operational capacity, organizational capacity that is there's an adaptability, but also a laser focus that also needs to happen. So how do you think about that from your perspective?
That's a really great question. That's a big question. I think about that in a couple of different ways. One, making sure that there's a clear understanding of our North Star. And with that understanding of that North Star, what are the metrics or goals that we're trying to achieve? And when there are decisions or asks that deviate from those goals, taking a pause and determining whether the recalibration needs to be had or more of a deprioritization of the ask. Two, we're also having thoughtful conversations around where are there workflow inefficiencies? Where is there a lot of manual time being spent that can be addressed through AI? And how do we partner with our technology and product teams and surface up these opportunities so that they can support us in identifying solutions that can give teams, that can create efficiencies, that gives our team time back to spend on like more strategic thinking. And then three, what does the next 6 months look like? I was going to say, what does the next like year to 2 years, but
anything over 6 months anymore, you can't even predict it.
Unrealistic.
Yeah.
And then three, what are all of the conversations that we're hearing externally, and how do we and let's make sure that we have a group of people who are intaking those conversations, and then we're talking about these new technologies, these new changes in customer behavior, and then determining how do we want to test, fold, address the new things that we're learning into the existing op model.
There's no clear answer, I guess, is maybe there's so many components, and as much as I again love the way you divided that into the 3 areas, and I also like each of those areas is set up to easily evolve too, right? Like back to our early conversation of learn and grow, and there's a lot of research coming in now. The main reason transformations are failing is because folks fail to adapt and adjust when new information comes to bear. It becomes like, well, I made this commitment, I've got to stick with it no matter what. And it's like, no, again, back to the search for knowledge, et cetera. So,
and transformation is a living, breathing thing. So like you said, it's never done.
Never done. So, well, on that happy note, we have a lot of work ahead of us.
We could feel comfort, or we could have, get comfort in the idea that we'll always have jobs. And
yes, of some kind, either jobs or heart attacks, one of those two,
yeah,
right?
One or the other,
So,
or both
exactly.
at the same time.
So, Barbra, not just thanks for being here. I will say thank you for your wonderful brand contributing to a portion of my closet and not just being my nerdy, dorky self. So thank you. So excited to see you, as one of the helms of the brand, and just Loved having you on. Thank you for joining, and hope we are in the same city at some point in the future so we can catch up face to face.
Oh, I hope so too, Anne. Thank you for inviting me to, be on the podcast, the Transformers podcast. It's been so great catching up. And yeah, you can count on it. Next time we're in the same city, we're having drinks.
We are
on
absolutely
me.
Great. First round's you, second round's me, right? All right. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you, Anne.
And thanks to all of you for joining us today on Transformers. We hope to see you back in a couple of weeks.